In my last video covering the odd world of Tartaria, I commented that we should be doing our own research, and because I do that, and sometimes I use YouTube for my research. I look for videos and topics to study. Now certain things keep coming up on my feed, and it's almost like it's prompting me to keep a promise. So this is what happened. I started off with our autodidactic friend and host of the channel Autodidactic 2, pretty much where I left him off in the first video, trying to work out where all the red brick comes from.
Where's all the brick coming from? All the red brick.
Remember him? Maybe not.
Now, where was all the brick coming from? Have these all been built from the brick and the rubble that they found around, is what I'm thinking. Yeah, is that brick because that was the material they could find? You know, that was because that's what you use, right? You use what's easy to get when you're building a new colony, what's abundant.
Well, let me tell you, he waffles on a little bit more about the red bricks, which really seems to bother him. But nonetheless, he presses on and diverts our attention back to the Swan River, but not before expressing his confusion and complaining of the quality of the photos. Let's have a look at this then, shall we?
See what we can say. I mean, and look at the quality of this photo. I mean, seriously, this is another thing. Photo quality just goes up and down, and the years don't seem to make a difference.
The quality of photos vary due to a few things. The method of capturing the desired image, the type of camera and the type of plates used, the exposure and the chemicals used to imprint the image. This was back in a time when cameras were just beginning to make an impact worldwide by becoming portable.
1860, guys. So Perth, founded 1828, 32 years.
Yes, 32 years. By December 1828, there were 914 residents in the Swan River colony. By 1850, male convicts were introduced. That's 10 years before the photo that you're showing. So can you imagine how many buildings were built?
32 years, guys. Turning up in a boat. Now remember, they couldn't even get their ships in back then because there was a limestone wall.
Just a note about the ships that are on display there. They have long, flat decks, much like ones that you would transport goods from Fremantle to Perth with. Just saying, it is the 1860s after all.
Can you see the background here? Look at that. I mean, seriously, look at that.
Yeah, I am looking at it, and it's a great photo of an 1860s in Perth, the Swan River colony. What are you trying to say?
Of course, they've had to build all these piers and things.
And that's exactly what they did. Because of early exploration of the French in the very early 1800s, areas up the Swan River were documented where hazardous limestone deposits were. I believe this map shows some of the civil works completed, dated 1840.
But yeah, they've got to come up, then they've got to find, obviously they don't need to find the wood, they've got to cut it down, mill it, have all the machinery to do that and a building to do it, and they've got to find the clay, start the industries, same with lime and cement.
Yes, it's obvious they did all this already. And it's now 1860s, not 1827. They got this stuff pretty much together and down pat by now. Wouldn't you think?
Everything, glass, steel. Where were they smelting the steel? All these buildings got steel, like there's a bit of steel right there. 1860. So, I mean, this story is just ridiculous. Look at this. This is a big brick building.
Humans have been smelting all types of metals for literally thousands of years. And you're convinced that these guys who set out to build a new life for themselves on a new continent, thousands of miles away from home, didn't bring any of this stuff with them. But you would like to believe that all the material was already there, waiting for it to be found and used.
You know, when you look at these photos, you would have to be a little bit silly not to question this, because the more you look into this, the more ridiculous the story gets. Look at this, 1890. Got a couple of dudes, Laurel and Hardy here, riding along on their push bikes. Riding along on my push bike, honey. And then in the background, fully completed Swan Brewery, of course. So this is the thing, guys. What do you want? His story is not our story. It looks like it's all been flooded over, but that is a man-made shoreline. It's actually the whole Swan River is man-made shoreline. The whole lot. No story of who did that. They don't mention that. No, don't look here.
What are you on about?
There's our swans. So there you go. Black swans. And as you see, loving it in the fresh water. Heaps of them. And yeah, apparently the whole river just used to be covered in them. But now, like I said, it's salt water and they're freshwater birds, so they have taken off to our lake system.
And there you have it. Evidence that the removal of the limestone barrier in the Swan River to gain access for the supply boats increased the salinity of the Swan River. The limestone would have also been a great resource, like for walls and things. Maybe.
Which, Perth has a big lake system, but it used to be a lot bigger, and so much has been filled in. They're always filling in the swampland and putting housing estates on them. So I wonder what that means.
Probably means it's got nothing to do with Tartaria or mud floods.
Now I'm just trying to get a perspective here, because Perth's actually more like around here. This is like South Perth. God, I wish I had a clearer shot of this. I don't even really know what I'm looking at.
Well, looks like geography's not your strong point either.
I mean, that may be Perth. I'm just trying to think of the angle that this is taken on. I mean, it may be, because what I'm looking at, where did I see it?
I don't know, get a load of this. I just compared a painting, an oil painting, that was done roughly around 1860, 1870, and one from Google Earth from Google Maps on Street View. And your picture. And you see where the mouse is right there? That's the town hall.
Because we used to have baths.
A few jokes could be made here, but I'll refrain.
I really don't know. That could be South Perth or Perth. But whatever it is, it's got way too many buildings to be explained for 1890.
If there's way too many buildings, then where were the buildings that they found that were left behind? From where all the red brick came from? You know that bit?
So there you go. And the more digging we do, the more photos we're finding. It's hard to find a lot from Australia.
In general, the collection of photographs taken by A.H. Stone during the 1860s featured people, buildings and scenes in Perth. Living in close proximity, Stone recorded the construction of both the present Government House and the Perth Town Hall in a series of photographs.
But they're those old houses that are red brick, huge brewery, man-made shoreline on the river, but just a mud road, because that's what you do. You don't worry about transporting your goods. First of all, you build a man-made wall along the whole length, and this is a big river, guys. It looks around the turn of the century. They say this was built, 1898, I think they said, or 1900. everything is complete, including this wall with the arch over it. So what's this wood for? You know, that's a completed building. It's even got Antiquitech on the top. So, you know, this was already there, guys. It's just a silly, silly story.
Classic example here of using two different types of cameras.
Clearly they didn't build that.
Well, I reckon they did build it, and the only silly, silly stories are the ones you're telling.
But yeah, this is a story of Perth, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm not really sure about which bits you mean. Doesn't make sense.
The story of Perth, the time frames are all out of whack.
Again, which bits are out of whack?
Because they literally didn't have the materials or the industry to build this stuff.
In 1827, they didn't. By 1860, they created little lives for themselves. Anyway, I really should move on and find other subjects to look at, because none of the information provided makes sense. And thanks for watching.